Greetings. This is the second video of a series of 15 videos of me reading the poetry that I wrote post the passing of my mother, Suncha Wellens-Shepard. The book of poetry available on Amazon is called The Sun and the Hereafter Poems by David R Wellens. And these videos will be 15 in series. This is the second one. Each video will be 10 poems in length, and they'll be carried on YouTube. Just keyword David R Wellens and The Sun and the Hereafter. And just a word, my mom was an amazing human being. She, first of all, was beset with a hell of a lot of disadvantages and people who were against her because of her single-minded determination to raise her children, to provide for her children, to not to be taken advantage of. She lived, for 78 years, and during that time, she impressed a lot of people. She worked as a bartender in the days when the feminism was rising. She got to know a lot of people who were who really thought highly of her and respected her a great deal. And I think that no one respected her as much as I did. Her first son, and had a stellar academic career through college, and my humanitarian state of mind, or my humanitarian focus in life, stems from my mother's upbringing. She was incredibly dutiful. She was delightful to talk to. People were always eager to speak with her. But most of all, she made a heck of a lot of meals for her children, cooking almost every day for years and years and years. She was married and remarried several times. Her husbands tended to fall away because they would fall short of their kindness to her children, for the most part. And my mother was also incredibly attractive. She was extremely beautiful, and she got to know people like Jackie Gleason and Tom Jones and others during her days in the late 60s at the Playboy Club in Miami Beach, where she worked as a bar manager, and Bunny. And so basically, these poems were written on a daily basis after her passing away. So let me go ahead and continue. This is the 11th poem. And I'll be reading poems 11 through 20 from the book. And this is my tribute to her. And oh, by the way, last night I had this dream that she had returned, that we were together again, and it was like, it wasn't like, before. It was like, hey, I've returned, I'm back. and I was with her and so amazed that she had returned and that we were living together again and just enjoying each other's company as we did. And I can't recall ever having such a great dream in my life. And it was incredibly enough, it was the night after I started reading these poems in series on this video, on this YouTube video series. I guess the karma or God Himself has blessed me with a great deal of sense of carry on, because she was trying to the very end to recuperate and to get better, and yet her life was ended at the hospice. And with that problem, with that act at the hospice, I tend to I was in such disagreement with what had happened that I have fallen far afield of healthcare's policies and things that seem to be quite utilitarian instead of humanitarian, and that's my biggest gripe. But whether Mom is still alive and will return is a great mystery to me, and I can't help but think that for my own sake, for my own hope, for my own optimism in life, and not to fall into the abyss of despair, that somewhere her spirit, herself, even her just being still alive might be possible. So this is the 11th poem in the book, page 23. It says, "What was the change? Last night I sensed a change in the karma. It was as if we were back to you and me, soap operas and guitar practice, your morning frosted flakes and my announcing I would take a shower. The feeling has changed, but you couldn't possibly be risen from the dead. Your ashes, if they are your ashes, are right here in your steel urn, and we have your death certificate with your name, and it was on legal record. So why do I believe? I announced that I would start that novel recounting the fantasy of your being still at the hospice, where your health is being restored in stealth, a big rouse it feels like now, and the heart attack and sinking feeling I will have at the sight of you risen is priced in. The team effort seemed deceptive to me, that you were being carted off and hidden so that you could heal and I could cease my worry, or that my mourning could be gauged in terms of devotion. I would gladly be the biggest fool on earth that you live." And from that poem is kind of the thesis poem in what has gone on in my dreams last night, that holding out hope that Mom is actually secretly being held, and like in a hospital, and not being released until she gets better herself. Which, of course, people might say, "Oh, given what you said, that her ashes were presented to you and things like that, that you don't believe she's dead still, that's a problem. You must be crazy." I don't think it's craziness. I think it's being hopeful. It's wanting more than what had happened. In terms of care, the care was to bring somebody back in ICU to where they could breathe on their own, and and yet end their life at the very end is just incredible to me. Anyways, so this is the second poem for tonight, the 12th poem in the series, on page 25. The clouds have gathered. It's a new year, and I'm seeing clear to the next one. For what worth is a photo when you are gone? This house we shared is some comfort, with winter here so mild, and my mood so winsome and low. I set plans of things to do to occupy my time, yet those memories we shared set my mind to idle here, and I have spent my desire's aim and goal. There just won't be anyone to come near. Time was stretching for us, and now it has stopped. There is not time, and time's no more the comfort it could have been, so much action and toil. How old the air has become, unperturbed by the waves of sound that served us well. We have spent our days to bring about a result that is so awful and unforeseen, the end. Could it be replayed, I would be the one with you all times, every second, minute, hour. You would not leave my sight, and the photos never come into play to substitute for the real. The clouds have gathered on this our life. And that is like a promise. It's like a promise that if she were to return, I would be with her. I would make sure she is taken care of. That I personally make sure every need she has to sustain life would be filled. That no doubt is perhaps a far gone conclusion, but even though I'm just something's telling me that that even though the clues are few and far between, it just seems that if there was ever a miracle in my life that needed to happen, this would be it. I saved her life several times before this last time, the last time that she went away and passed. I saved her life several times, and yet just I never doubted that just one more, each time, as long as I was near her, that she would be able to come back and to recuperate and to continue living. She lived to 78, and they say that's a life expectancy for her, which I think is a rationalization. I think it's information that was presented to me to try to present some kind of closure to me, which I just don't understand how someone could think that just that presenting or fabricating or making up a fact like that or a statistic would be any kind of closure for anyone. Anyway, so this is the third poem, page 27. You are so remarkable and beautiful. I relaxed a bit today after having seen you in a dream. We were going places, and there was a Japanese lady in a white Lexus sports car who looked like an Asian. To see you in my dream made me glad, so I went back to sleep after breakfast in my clothes on the couch, before my shower and after breakfast. It made my mind relax to sense that your spirit was with me. It was as if you had never died and I had never mourned. I watched NHK News Channel on the TV tonight and really thought I'd like to teach English there for a few years and learn the Japanese language and culture. As I told you, I love the sound of the language and the folklore too. I got my exercise bike in the box today and I put it together. I'm going to try to get healthy and trim my body and extend my endurance and build my muscles. And once I have fixed my health, I may find someone like you. I hope you wouldn't mind. Anyway, no one will replace you, and I will never have a hero like you who were with me my 56 or more years. And thank God you were so remarkable and beautiful. And that poem seems to be kind of a turning away, but it's not really turning away. It's just looking forward. Should there come a day when I'm sure she will never return, that there's a return from me to independence and to exploring the world as I've done before. And this is poem number the fourth poem tonight, the 14th poem on page 29. So reckless, so unaware. I think of that song Mother by Pink Floyd that I saw at the start of yesterday, and I would have let you hear and see the YouTube video should you still be around, as I usually do. How the media now follows us around since computers, which you foretold as the thing to study, can keep track of all our words spoken or indicated, and by following us can prescribe what we seem to want or need. I recorded a song by Gaspar Sands at 12:30 a.m., Ruggiero it was called, but I let the recording go through even though the playing of it is choppy. You might have told me to do it over, but I will let it stand to remind me that you would have disliked it. But it is an album that I started and will not abandon. I sense that some reason will make itself apparent as to why you dislike it, but I am curious. And doesn't it stand to reason that we have a foreboding of sorts, an augury of the future badly taken to the future past? As we look backward, walking on the path, the future comes at us unaware, recklessly. Now that Gaspar, that reference to the Gaspar Sands recording that I made after Mom's passing, what had happened on the day that she passed, in fact, the very minute she had her respiratory crisis, I was actually practicing in the other. I've been with her all day, all morning, after going out to get submarine sandwiches for us to share, and she had hers and I had mine, and a few hours later I actually decided to go into the other room to practice guitar. In fact, it was Gaspar Sands, a song by Gaspar Sands that I was practicing, and I was only gone for a few minutes practicing. I tend to practice maybe 15 minutes at most at a time, so as to spare my tendons from being sore and hurting. So what I did was, after I practiced for a while, or when I started practicing, she said, "Oh, don't play that song. I don't like that." She didn't like the sound of Gaspar Sands. It was a very piratey kind of a sound from the classical guitar, and so that was the last thing I heard from her. But then what I did was, after I practiced for a while, I went back into her room, and I said to her, "Mom, how'd you like that, or how you doing?" And she had actually fallen unconscious, and I saw that her lips were blue, and she wasn't responding. She had said before I went to practice that she actually was feeling kind of sleepy and things like that, and so I first was concerned about her, her falling asleep and regurgitating and things like that, which is what had happened. But I asked her, Mom, why don't you lie down on your side and get some sleep so that you'll be okay? And she said, no, I'll just watch TV here. And so I said, well, maybe this pillow thing will keep you from bending forward into your, like she sometimes did. She fell asleep sitting up with her legs Indian style. She would fall asleep with her bent completely in half, with her torso almost between her legs on the bed. And so to prevent, and then when she'd get up, her back would hurt so much, she would complain from the pain. And I said, well, why don't you try this pillow thing and put it right, in front of you, so that when you lean forward, you're leaning forward, with support. And she said, oh yeah, I think that's a good idea. And I said, yeah, I try to think of things to improve your health and to make you comfortable. And so she was watching TV like that when I left the room to practice. And when I came back, her face was in the pillow thing, and I thought she had just suffocated. But later on, they had told me at the ICU that she had actually regurgitated and breathed in her vomit, which is very sad. She had acid reflux problems, and she was taking a medicine for that. And it was well known to the doctors that she had problems keeping down food. But she had so many health issues that and I'm no nurse. I had some scientific training in pre-medical sciences at college, but I was a student health educator and CPR instructor, but I'm no nurse. I was never trained in geriatric nursing or how to take care of someone with so many issues. But I was the only one available with her. Nobody else in our family, volunteered to help her. I helped her monetarily. I was with her constantly. I tried to make things fun, taking us to concerts and going out to get food and encouraging her to do what she needed to do every day, and to do the chores around the house. Eventually, I got to the point where I was actually going out to get meals at fast food restaurants for us, or Chinese dinner meals. She especially liked the shrimp and lobster sauce. And so basically, all that time, I was like, just 10, 15 minutes maybe, I was in the other room practicing for the Gaspar Sands album. And then I came back into the room, and her lips were blue, she was unresponsive. And I just immediately thought, oh my God, she's not breathing. So I administered CPR. I called 911 and started administering CPR. And basically, she was still unresponsive. And then the emergency crew came to the house, and they took her into the living room to the floor where she was more, where her back was more supported than on the bed. And so at that time, I was just so. I was so adrenaline filled that I may have seemed, a little bit, just a little bit. What's the word? Purposeful or something. But they opened an airway and with a inflator bag and they checked her heart. Her heart was beating and everything. And so I don't know. It seemed as though we had saved her life, and I was fully anticipating her coming, yet another seventh or eighth time that I had saved her life, and that she would come home eventually. But that wasn't the case of what happened. That's what happened, but she didn't come home. But I do hope, as you can tell by these poems, that I do hold out hope that she's actually that afterwards perhaps someone arranged an intervention, thinking that, well, David needs to be excused. He needs to get on with his life because he can't do any more, sacrificing his time for his mom, who needs more advanced care. But they won't tell me that, because if they told me that, then I might do legal action or something like that to have it reversed. But the thing is that I just have this feeling in my heart and my very soul that she's still alive, and that she's even her spirit is alive in me, someone said. And my dream last night, which just seems so real to me, just cheered me up immensely. This morning I woke up feeling a lot better than I felt yesterday. So anyway, here's the next poem, number 5 in the series. This one's called The Irony. I'm not sure what is going to be brought by the future, but when you were here, I did not fear it as much as now. The confidence in you was never misplaced, and the fact that you were good for it was sure. There is not an alternative to anything except those things you told me to do and be in the past few years. Don't spend money. Pay the bills. Don't forget to do the chores. Eat healthy, and so on. There isn't much else for the past lessons to recommend of the future's uncertainties. My end that shall come, as shall everyone's, is mine to avoid. Your end was pretty much an accident when we thought the storm of our fears were behind us. Ironic it may be deemed, too ironic. I hate the word, and I dislike the situation that tends to it. How can I be assured that there is no fear and no ironic end? To my days, to my life now, that yours is forfeit. It just could not be more cruel, unless never reversed, which it can never be unless it already has been. And here's the next poem. Cherry Pit Hearts is the title. You know, I never held a grudge, for as long as I could know that I'd be able to see you laugh again and smile. I discount those who have no forgiveness for those who have struck then, and they are off. It is a default of an intelligent man not to think someone is really gone, dead and gone, because the thought of it just doesn't nestle in the heart and mind. And there is even more to do, because it was always good, even when bad. There are no morals in the search for nirvana. I don't even know what that is, but there are a few folk who are stick figures and who glare at a loving passion as if looks could kill. And they probably did, and their cyanide is 20% off. Yet my mercy extends only as far as my mind and heart can forgive. When you were around, I could find infinite patience and see into the mystery of love. But those whose hearts and minds are cherry pits, wooden and devoid of a sweetness, they fall not far from the tree and are discarded when the feast is done, but the glow of the embers still ravishes. That poem, because my mother, she really enjoyed cherries. I remember one in the earlier years, she would bring home from grocery shopping. She'd bring home, a whole bag of cherries, and then rinse them immediately. And as soon as the groceries, even before the groceries were put away, she would serve us cherries, and we'd sit together and we'd eat some cherries together and things like that. And so it's a fond memory I have, among many hundreds, thousands of memories that I have of Mom. that almost everything I think of and see throughout the day is a reminder of my mother to me, which could be a good thing. Uh, some might think it's a bad thing, but those types of thinkers aren't worth the salt. So basically, here's the next poem. This is on page 35. This one's called "Where There Once Was a Father." Surely enough, as I saw the hospital guard your organs and rush ahead for your corneas, I rebel. These market ways that commingle with the law for punishments and use business for cover, I am ashamed. I always assumed all physicians passed through the Hippocratic eye of the needle so as to retain always humanity. But no, I had got it wrong. It is their job. The politics and greed have seeped into this realm that should be noble, higher than noble, an ennobling enterprise to heal a body from injury or age or disease. Your life was faultless, and I often liked to celebrate it. Now I am not celebrating your death. I am celebrating my love for you that kept me near you, for you were imperiled, that made me fight for you because you were small, that made me support you because you were weak. Haphazard event that sprung all action into action. Just a few minutes to hasten the end of a millennium of care. Where there was once a father, now there is an earthly mother, a motherly spirit. And that's a lot I bit off to chew there, as far as realizing that since I was young, I had wanted to be a physician, a doctor, and at that point, I wrote that poem. I was so fed up with what I'd seen, the complications to my mother's care that kept cropping up, that the doctors seemed to only throw her a new medicine or something like that to try, and even though she was, she seemed to be, for 78, she was in decent shape, but so many things kept happening, like a hit and run accident, a couple of car accidents that were her fault, people running into her, healthcare worker, especially one named Pat, a phlebotomist at the Florida Med Center. She severed a nerve in my mom's arm when she was drawing blood, and my mother was like, her arm felt numb for almost a year after that, until her nerves grew back or improved, and basically my faith in the doctors, Dr. Seife had said to me when I was like, complaining about these things keep happening as if no one cared, and people were actually aligned against us, even in the healthcare industry, to live, to survive, to try to beat our illnesses, to not to succumb to disease, that our own doctors, were just they were not being of help. And Dr. Seife told me on the phone, he said he was going to have to hurt me, and I couldn't believe my ears. And since then, I've been my faith in healthcare workers as carers or humanitarians has been really shaken. What I figure now is probably most, a vast majority of them are only in it for the job, for the pay, that they can do it, that for their income, for their livelihood, not so much as a noble or a lifelong desire to heal the human spirit or the human body, or people in general, as a kindness to humanity. I think so few people really have that sense of a love for humanity. Anyway, and this poem is on page 37. This one's called "The Miracle of You and Me." As life tests me to see if I am to survive, I look to you and the memories of all you've told me, nay, warned me to do. At my peril, I think of new adventures that now are tightropes. Could you have not done one thing, and I had been with you for 5 minutes the interim, there would be none of this and all of this. I muse that you have gone nowhere, no exit. That estate purgatory may have been the sustain of your spirit, or it might be just time after the events that fade and flow, that fade and flow. I wanted none of this loneliness I could not imagine, and though we struggled as one together toward a singular time when it would be me, a survivor who loathes the title of survival because our disaster was none. The idea that you would even reemerge and show the miracle of healing, the miracle of mercy, the miracle of return, the miracle of you and me, of me and you and me again. Now that poem was, my mother often said, because of her, her early diagnosis and healing from cancer and things like that she had previously beaten. She often said she was a miracle patient, and I was totally convinced of it because, like I said, I saved her life several times up into the point this incident, and she actually, I actually had so much faith in her that she would actually outlive me, that she would actually she would not pass away. It just seemed inconceivable because she had been saved so many times. And the medical profession, yeah, they saved her life and things like that. And the insurance covered it and things like that. And that's a really great thing. That is really, truly an amazing thing. And I'm forever grateful for that. But all of a sudden, near the end in 2019, during the Trump administration, it was as if people just were like, became anti-Asian, became, looking around for like spies from Asia or China or something. It was kind of a hysteria that was going around, though unspoken. You could see people, even our own family, were like negative on people without jobs, or people, who have disease, or people who were not, quote, Anglo-Saxon looking Americans. My mother was an American citizen. She'd been for many decades, and all her children were American citizens. I'm an American citizen. I was born an American, born abroad in the U.S. 8th Army Base in Seoul, Korea, U.S. 8th Army Base, and I even, on my birth certificate it says American born abroad. And so I'm just, I've been an American citizen all my life. But the thing is that, like I said, during the later years of the Trump administration, when, my mother being a lifelong Democrat and things like that, she had actually, when it came time to elect a president during those years, she voted for Hillary Clinton, and I told her I would vote for Trump, just so that in case one of them turns out to be a loser, that hope is not lost for one of us, that the other one of us can pull each other through. For example, if Hillary Clinton had won, my mother had voted for her, and I'd voted for Trump, and Trump didn't win, and something, some kind of political tide would turn against us, that my mother would look after me and make sure that I'm okay. And if Trump would win, that I would look after my mom and make sure she's okay, which I tried my best to do. So basically, but the thing is the anti-Asian sentiment was just really starting to build. Trump has, his anti-China stance was really gaining momentum here in Florida, and so basically we were having trouble. We were having trouble just coping with people in general and daily interactions. They looked at us like we were scum. It was quite awful. So anyway, the next poem, page 39, it says, Baptism of Ashes. There is a chance you shall return, so I shall stay here in our house until the hope is gone. I imagine that the idea that you survived the hospital ordeal is just a way to manacle my mind. But the finality of all that suffering I saw you go through is not connection with my waking thoughts. When I remember the things you told me to do about the house to maintain, it is a gliding my hope does. I could wait till I am no more, knowing that the happiness due to me shall perhaps be thwarted in yet another twist of fate. And these words give comfort not just to me, but to you, should you be secretly alive and healing. I fear the monstrous idea that the so-called carers have had you and I controlled here for so long, that all is prescripted and preordained, a fate that is ill to our freedom. Even the potential helpmates who could help me take care of you, should you be miraculously returned to this house and make my apprehensions make sense. But all tranquility awaits in a sea of baptism of ashes. And by that, I mean, my mother, all her life, she made it clear that when she passed, she didn't want to be buried in a grave. She wanted to be cremated. And so I had the ashes, and I still have them. In fact, I haven't scattered them anywhere because I just, they're sealed in the urn, so that there's no escape of, ash or anything like that. But the thing is that she was actually, she actually oftentimes, tried to prepare us for the time when she would pass, and she'd said so often. She had said things, so often about it that I was always trying to dismiss her from saying things like that. I'd say, Mom, don't talk like that. Or, no, don't worry about it. Don't be negative. Things like that. Oh, Mom, just lighten up, okay? Would you? Things like that. And so, but I didn't mean it as a disrespect. I meant it as a, Mom, cheer up. You're gonna live a good long life. And it turned out she lived pretty long time. And as this poem said, basically she lived. She lived, and it was and hopefully she was actually I was actually in the house. I had become the survivor in interest for the house mortgage on the Tuscola Street house, and she actually 1309 Tuscola Street in Clearwater. And she actually, I actually tried my best to stay in the house and to keep it up, but with just my, my government checks that come in every month, I was quickly realizing that if any emergency came along, I might have to, I might have a problem getting any kind of relief from debt, things like that. So basically, I had to sell the house. And I'm trying to find another house for me to live in that's comfortable. But the thing is that I promised her that I would try to keep up the house and I would keep it for her. But the thing is that it was just, my income was so low, and my back was hurting so much, and other health problems, that I just couldn't I couldn't keep up the house and save it for her. That's what I wanted to do though. So, but anyway. So now, unfortunately now I'm finding just how hard it is to find a place to live that's affordable here in the southeast of America. It's just, it really is quite sobering to know that that if I have to that just to live here is quite a struggle, and why it should be that way is totally a mystery to me. For a country that is so rich and powerful, to for the people to make it so impossible to find affordable rents, or to be able to get a mortgage. That mortgage payments are actually usually lower than rents are by half or more, and yet banks just won't loan sometimes. I'm trying to get a mortgage now, and if I got a mortgage, that would be the last big mortgage I've ever got, and the first. I've never bought a house myself, so now I'm working on that project, trying to get that done. And as soon as I can get a house of my own, I will make sure that I can afford it, and wherever it is, whether it's in Waycross or Clearwater or Tampa or wherever. And here, the last poem for tonight is page 41. It's entitled Saved You Again. I am settling into solitude and cannot forget the promises made to you in these lines. Against the odds, I see how being alone is salve and crutch or peril and purgatory. I'm getting used to waiting. They provided evidence of your demise, but I chose not to believe it. Instead, I see that you are living, a life force in my memory, and plausible plot of a novel I have yet to write. What's the use of being alone anyway? We must be alone to reflect, and we must reflect to write. I am in that netherworld of wanting to endeavor in a project to tell all in words that will stand for us. I could start with your standing on the couch and putting up curtains, and how I admonished you not to fall, not to clean curtains whose maintenance is not worth a fall. And the accidents came one by one. Not your fault, it was found. But why were the people so careless in your vicinity? Was it a subtle plan of karma that retired you? I don't want an answer. I want to have saved you again. And that last line, I want to have saved you again, that is, I think that's the defining, that's something that's etched in my heart and mind, that I feel useless not having saved Mom just one more time, or as many times as it takes. I was positioned myself being with her, all day long, not working, trying to be with her as much as possible, in person in the same room as much as possible. I had hoped that she would not pass, and yet, some people say it's inevitable. Older people pass. One of the Bach chorales that I'm working on now, the first one, says all men must die, and that means that everybody dies, right? So if you're taking care of an elderly person and you stay with them until the very end, they're going to pass away. And the unfortunate thing is, you might feel guilty that you didn't do enough to save their life, or some accident might occur that you think you could have prevented. That's how I feel about it. It's taken me so many months, almost a year now, a year or more, to pick up the guitar in a meaningful way again, because I just feel like when I'm playing guitar, sometimes I'm trying to play guitar or whatever, I'm thinking, man, I was playing guitar, and if I weren't playing guitar, if I was sitting with Mom, even though she was trying to get some sleep, or watching her soaps or whatever, and if I were, I don't know, if I were in the same room with her, she might be alive today. And anyone taking care of elderly parents or grandparents, as caregivers in the home, it's a terrible reality. The feeling you get when someone passes like that, and whether you had any direct input on that or not, or whether you were actually able to save their life or not, that haunts you. It haunts, and now I understand what haunting is. That feeling that you didn't do enough, that you're inadequate, that you're just it's just too much. It's just too much pressure to look back and rationalize, look back on things. That in looking back, that to say to yourself, well, you're okay. You did okay. For me to get to that point again, it's going to take some doing. I'm trying to pick up the guitar again. I'm trying to learn more. Trying to do another album. I've got four or five more albums reserved on TuneCore to produce of my own playing, and so basically I don't want to blame myself, and nobody's blaming me, but it's that lingering of the memory that makes you say to yourself, what if I had done things differently? And it makes you second guess yourself so much. It makes you say to yourself, whenever you make a decision about things, you think and double think and triple think and try to avoid any kind of mishap and things like that. You become static. You tend not to venture off and do things, travel or take a plane or go on a long trips, vacation somewhere or whatever, because you start thinking, oh, what if this would happen? What if this happens because I took too much risk, or anything could go wrong? If something so simple as my mom, aspirating her vomit or whatever in another room, after a meal, 2 hours after a meal, I just don't know how. I just don't know how. Sometimes I just don't know how I can forgive myself for. But then I have to say to myself, I'm the only one of her relatives, of her children, that really wanted to help her and take care of her. My sister, she said she did, but she was really just she's been so negative. But anyway, but my mom, I helped pay all the bills, help with the chores, and went out and got meals and things like that, and went with her to the doctors almost every time. A couple of times I overslept and didn't go with her. She was able to go by herself to the doctors. She was mobile and walking around, and she was, able to do things. And this, her passing, the initial crisis was just so came out of left field. She had seemed to have gotten back to full health, and I was just so hopeful that she'd live another 10 years or so, and anyway, but that's what these poems are about, my dealing with that, way of strategy, not a strategy, but a outpouring of my feelings from day to day. Most of they were written while I was in the Tuscola house, the house we shared. And she just, and I went, I had pictures of her everywhere in the house and things like that. And now where I'm living, I have pictures of her up on the walls. Unfortunately, I wish I had. And that's why that's one of the reasons I want to get another house, is to fill it back up with the furniture from the Tuscola house that Jim, my brother, he says to me, just sell it. He doesn't really want the furniture my mother left to him. But so he kind of cedes it to me. So I just have it in storage, and I just want to get another house that I could fill the house with and have her pictures up again, so I can think on her and the beauty she was, and the spirit she encompassed. She was just such an amazing human being, to come from South Korea during war-torn countries, and just come to America and raise children so successfully. People might say, what do you mean successfully? Because they think, you're full of yourself or whatever. But she actually overcame quite a few. She endured the real difficult times, the real nitty gritty of what it means to make meals every day for four kids plus a husband, maybe to work as well, an exhausting job late at night, and come home and sleep during the day and get up again every day, and every now and then she'd get kind of sick and almost just sometimes she would get kind of like exhausted, I guess, and have kind of like hypertensive breakdowns. But because the pressure, she had so much pressure to raise children, but she never shirked it. She just kept living, and kept producing, and kept making food, kept bringing keeping the house up, keeping matters flowing, and things like that. And I just miss her so much. Anyway, that's so much for this hour of the poetry reading of The Sun and the Hereafter by David R Wellens. You can find the book on Amazon, and I've self-published it on Amazon, and so you can read along, or you can read it for yourself to see what it is. About 150 poems in the book, and they're all free verse. And so basically, give it, any royalties I get, which are few and far between, quite honestly. Any royalties I get from the book, would greatly be appreciated. So, all right, I'm going to sign off now, but I'll see you again. I'll record again tomorrow. This is going up on YouTube almost immediately after I sign off, and so you can tune in, and especially kind of a service I'm presenting for the blind, or for the people who can't read for themselves, or who want to hear a little extra besides just the poems themselves, the commentary that I provide between poems, in a tribute to my mother's life and to her life well lived. She really was a survivor. She really did over and above what was expected of her. She came from such, being an immigrant in America, she came from such disadvantage, but her being able to just keep us alive from day to day, that itself was an incredible juggling act. It was an incredible climb up a mountain that few could have done. Anyway, I love you, Mom. I love you, Mom. And like I said, I pray that I ever see you again. I pray that I see you again someday. Thank you.